This is the Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com. You can follow the YouTube channel, which just passed 100,000 subscribers. So check that out at Avenue 9 AI on YouTube. And our guest this week is Dr. Angela Mulrooney, founder of Unleashing Influence. You can find her at unleashinginfluence.com because we're both good at marketing. And she is also the author of Own Your Genius, a new book out this year about how to unleash your greatest impact. And Angela, I feel like this is a interesting question these days because everybody is kind of defaulting to leaning on AI to unleash their greatest impact, like it's somehow going to be an amplifier. But my take, and I think yours, is that we also have to like get real with ourselves first, and we got to figure out kind of what impact we're going to make and why we would do that, which is a lot of work before you even start to apply any AI. What's your take on that?
I 100% agree with that. And I think a lot of people think they can pull ahead by just leveraging AI because they can get information from it that they can then integrate in their own stuff. But unless you have your own foundation and basis, which I call your niche of genius, AI is going to just amplify stuff that's already out there. But when you can figure out what you uniquely bring to the market, that's going to help you to maintain your relevance. If you have a program that you've created, whether it's just sitting in your head in how you operate, or you've actually created it and you have AI leveraging it, that's how you can really pull ahead. But yeah, there are a lot of false prophets out there who are, leveraging AI to make themselves look like superstars. But when you dig into it, it's Swiss cheese behind the scenes, which
well, I think that's problem number 2, right? Is that AI is not a unique advantage to your business. So if everybody uses AI to amplify, all you get is more noise, and actually becomes harder to have influence and harder to differentiate yourself from the competition. So that's a whole nother ball of wax, right?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people are using it to try and figure out what their place is, and AI is just pulling stuff out of the ether and being like, oh, we can use this for you. And it may not actually be you, but AI can be, as you know, very convincing and sycophantic. And so it can drag you down a rabbit hole, which is completely wrong. And you may be enamored with it such that you follow it without question, which I think we do need to be asking more and more questions all the time as to what we're getting from AI and how we're going to use it. So discernment
I've been
not gone
seeing
away.
More and more CEOs come to me and say, like, Claude said this, ChatGPT said we should do this, and thinking that it's super genius compared to the people and consultants they've already hired. But 2, I have also had multiple clients now run into competitors who used AI, and they built essentially the same thing. Book covers that look exactly the same, websites that look and read in exactly the same way, and pain points and website copy that's almost exactly the same, eerily similar, that they said, well, they must have stolen it from us. And we go, well, no, they built theirs before we did, and we know we didn't steal from theirs. And like, these are just parallel paths with AI, but they make both parties sound and look the same. That's a new sort of branding challenge.
Yes, absolutely. And I think part of it too is people are moving forward faster. So I also don't think it's always just AI influencing it. I think people, because they're asking so much more questions and there's so much more information coming at us, there are people in different parts of the world, and sometimes even in the same city, are coming up with the same conclusions, and they're putting it out there. And so there is almost like a collective consciousness that's happening with some topics as well, which I'm seeing with people who have never had conversations before, but they're coming to the same conclusions. So I think there's a few different things at play here that are making it feel like everyone's copying each other. And yes, if you're just purely using AI, that's a different story. But some people are not purely using AI, and we're seeing the same stuff.
Yeah, and I want to bring up another one, which is like it's sort of a more global market as well. So you might, obviously like 20 years ago, you wouldn't have ever heard of these people that were competitors. And now they're connected to the same people on LinkedIn. You're all targeting the same clients. You're all doing the same research and trying to show up on the same podcasts and all of these things that people are directing to the same answers because of AI, but also just because of this amplification of noise in the system. now creates a lot of problems. And that leads me to kind of the final big one that I wanted to mention with you. And we're still on the setup here. We're going to talk about how to fix these things here in a minute. But a lot of industries are being disrupted, and you've done a lot of work in what you call identity fracture. And see this like with professional athletes when they can't play anymore, they can't do that. I see it with my father who recently retired, and I was like, well, I spent my whole life, with my career and wealth building, and now I have enough money and the career time is over. He sold his business. What does that look like in his identity, and where does he find his self-worth? And I feel like a lot of people are being forced to change careers or rethink how they do things now that AI can do at least parts or sometimes most of their job. How have you seen this play out?
Well, what I've seen, especially, I tend to attract a lot of seasoned professionals, and I always have. And so they have these beautiful histories that have massive credibility, massive experience and expertise. And suddenly in the present day, they feel irrelevant, they feel invisible because of exactly what their history is. And so their future is a smoky black hole. And so they're in this moment of identity fracture going, I don't know where I fit. I don't know how I'm going to contribute. And
Yeah.
most people's identity is fairly wrapped up in their professional life, especially if they are a professional. And so when they feel like they can't contribute, they can't impact, then suddenly they feel like they're sitting in the dark going, what do I do now? Because their financial future is a black hole, their impact, their legacy, everything that they thought by playing the game of getting the job, getting into the institutions, building the credibility, that was supposed to ensure their future. And now that seems to be actually imploding their future. So it's a really hard place for people to be in. And I've had over 500 conversations with seasoned professionals, and it's not losing the work that's breaking them. It's losing their place in the world, how they can actually be a part
Yeah.
of their community. That's where they're really struggling. And we're seeing people in constant fight, flight, and freeze, which doesn't help with mental health either. And so people are really struggling out there.
Yeah, and I want to dive deep into this as our first kind of a official topic here. And I'd love you to share your story. Mine is similar, but very interesting that like I started out in my 20s as an entertainer. And so I actually had a fake identity of Romeo. And Romeo was a celebrity in Kansas City. And I was like performing at halftime shows, opening up for Billy Idol and doing all kinds of stuff. But nobody knew who Mike was. I could walk around the corner. And because I was on the radio, nobody knew who I was. I could be having a conversation with somebody and my voice would be on TV or on the radio, and they wouldn't think anything of it. And it was a really interesting kind of identity moment. But when I gave that up and went into the corporate world, it didn't quite really translate. I felt I had to kind of rebuild that. And I just launched Avenue 9 2 years ago. And I went from being the Sandler guy, the face of a brand of a sales training company, to starting my own an international sales training company with 200 locations, to being just me in business for myself. It really causes some big identity changes, and you have to figure out like, well, who am I and who am I in this role, and like what needs to change in the way I tell my story and connect with other people based on this new context. And then you throw AI on top of that and you're like, well, now I don't even know. Like this is a whole new world, and the market that I built previous businesses in doesn't exist anymore. Tell us about your story.
So I had wanted to be a dentist since I was 2. And at 32, I ended up with a career ending injury that killed my fine motor skill. And so that left me, I built an amazing practice. I had a brand in the industry where I cater to people afraid of the dentist. We call it catering to cowards. So dentists 20, 30 years my senior were sending me their patients because I had developed a skill set that most dentists don't achieve in a whole career. Plus, I dealt with a population that most dentists found tedious, whereas I love trying to get people on the side of like, okay, I actually like coming to the dentist. So for me, it was a game to take these feral adults who were like, people would threaten me all the time because they're scared. Like they're in this amped up thing. They wouldn't mean it. They wouldn't ever do that outside the office. But when they're scared, they're like, I had people take swipes at me and lots of interesting things. But yeah, so that was my big mission in dentistry, was to turn these these scared patients into ones who could come into the practice. And so when my hand stopped working, like it just stopped working. I couldn't do dentistry at all anymore. And everyone around me was telling me, oh, you've built this amazing brand, you've got referral base, just put some dentists in your place. And that should have been working, except the dentists who replaced me were dentists who used to refer to me. And so they're like, well, I can't be like, you're the amazing Dr. Mulrooney. Like, I can't be you. And I'm like, well, I wasn't always this level of dentist. Like, I can train you to be that. And they didn't want to. So I ended up having to really take the practice back more to basics. And that was heartache enough in it. But while I was keeping the practice every day that I walked in, there was like someone ripped a scab off my heart. And I spent 2.5 years, having a dark years of the soul. And then I finally decided to sell the practice and follow my intuition, because my intuition was like, you don't get to be a dentist anymore. Like, this is done. So why are you staying with this just because everyone is telling you to stay with it? It's time to like burn that identity, let it go, and start figuring out who you actually are in this world. Because keeping that tie was just keeping me in a cycle of, identity fracture of being like, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to contribute anymore. And it was breaking me.
Yeah. So how did you go about fixing that? And fast forward us now to the AI world and how you're helping that with helping your clients fix it.
Yeah. So that burn down of my identity really unleashed a whole bunch of opportunities that wouldn't have happened if I had stayed in the cage of dentistry. So it unleashed me to end up building 5 companies now. I've sold 4 of them. And when the AI stuff started coming in 2024, I started to be like, ooh, this thing's going to eat my lunch. I don't like this. So I decided to take a 6-month AI mastery course. It was 18 hours a week. And for the 6 months, I worked really hard. I built my first product. I actually won the AI Entrepreneur Award. And the last week of our course, the instructor sat us down, theoretically, like we were all in a virtual room, but he was like, okay, you all better start to learn to pride yourselves on something other than your intellect, because AI is going to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
So he echoed, after 6 months of investing all this time, this was exactly what brought me into the room. And he just like stamped it at the end that this is going to be a problem. And his predictions were by now that we were actually going to be out. So he was a little bit wrong on that, but I think it's still in the future if we look a few years out. But it's really
certainly getting more difficult, though. I feel like it's trending in that direction. The knowledge is no longer valuable. Anybody can get an answer, and certainly marketing wise, content marketing and creating an answer, or having thought leadership and stuff has really changed the game, because you're no longer trying to get like search traffic, because there isn't any, and what that means for like creating content, connecting with other people, and really changing the game from having answers to like having better questions, which is a big shift.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, with my clientele too, they're seeing this and they're in the same boat. Like, I work with highly intellectual people. And so they're trying to figure out, okay, yeah, if AI is going to eat my lunch, what am I actually going to do? So we have a system called the Genius Institute, where people can come in. I help to decipher what happens in their brain that creates the answers and creates the systems that they haven't necessarily fully documented. And we then turn those into products, like the 2 products that I've built for myself. So that's where I foresee a lot of the intellectual property going, is like, you can't just have intellectual property where you spout it out, because people do want to access it quicker without having to pay the high price point of a hourly consulting fee to get that information. Democratization of information is super important right now.
Well, I think, for me, knowledge work has always been in stages, because I've been in professional development for a long time now, and the knowledge, the answer isn't really the problem. The problem is most people can't apply that answer to their unique situation, and then even if they can, they can't change their habits, their beliefs, or like learn to execute fast enough, because I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about it this whole time, but the AI topic is so large that no one person could even learn everything there is to you need to learn about AI. And same thing with marketing. Nobody can be an expert in email marketing and social media and content and all of the other advertising, different mediums that there are. So even if you could look up that answer, you're not going to be a professional at executing it.
Yes.
And so there's still roles for humans in this process, because the answer to me was never the problem.
Mhm.
It's getting people to use the answer and know how to do it. I find that very fascinating. um I think, to circle back to some of these other issues, once people figure it out, how do they go about leveraging that? Like, what you've talked about products. I feel like a lot of people are building apps. The course industry has kind of been disrupted a lot with AI. And so some of the old influencer type things aren't even profitable anymore.
Mhm.
Speaking events still seem to be great. It's ironically, I see the old school human stuff actually being more powerful than digital projects. But what are you finding out there?
What I'm finding is a lot of people are building products, but they don't know how to actually get it out there and get sales for it.
Right.
And that's the problem. So influence is still an important part of it. Thought leadership is still an important part of it. You have to, like, it's like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. That's not true. If you build it, you need to build a path for them to follow to come and actually find you. And you have to understand the psychology of the buyer on the other side in order to get them to want to leverage it. And unless you're like, I've had people come to me and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to have this thing built by the end of Q4, and then I'm going to start marketing. And I'm like, nope, you got to
Yeah.
start now. Like, you should be starting a year before then, starting to drum up people's interest in it and getting feedback. And a lot of times people are building these things in a vacuum. They're not having conversations with people to find out what's actually going on, right? Like, before I wrote the book, I had 500 conversations with sideline professionals because I
Yeah.
wanted to see what was happening. And I could predict a lot of what they were going to say, but once in a while a zinger would come out that I hadn't anticipated. But I didn't want to just go on a hypothesis that this was needed. It was based on actual conversations that the methodology I put into the book is actually what serves that purpose. And when I do the relevance workshops, it's the same thing. So you have to understand your market. You can't just get enamored with your idea, which happens. We see that in entrepreneurship. We see that in product building. We see that in consulting as well, where people get really excited. And I have a conversation with them 2 years in, and I'm like, so how many clients are you working with? None.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at what point are you going to get help so that you can actually get clients? Because you're definitely in love with what you've built, and I think it's useful. But if you're not getting sales, this is a hobby. This isn't replacing your job that you left. You are just burning money doing this, which is going to get you into trouble, especially right now with how fast things are advancing. If someone else has the same idea and they can market it and get it out there, they're just going to loop you on the track.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of get squished here because the floor has been raised, especially even old school businesses like that do RFPs or put out bids for like roofing or construction equipment or medical supplies and things. They can't just fill out everybody's using AI to fill out the bid. So the worst bid is now like a C plus, and the top people are getting squished and disrupted as well. So those companies that used to be too big to follow up on your local RFP now have AI scraping those RFPs in your local market and submitting AI there. And so you're getting squished from the top and the bottom. And it's a totally different game. And I bring that up because I think what you're saying is right, that building the business and building the marketing takes longer than the product now. I have a client that's in a SaaS business, and it seems like every day a new competitor is popping up, and somebody over the weekend used Claude Code to build something that's admittedly not as good as they've been working on for the last 5 to 7 years, but it looks real similar.
That's good enough.
The marketing, the promise is the same. how would a buyer know that it's different, or really know? And I mean, those are the questions we got to answer when we're talking about owning our influence or our genius. But it's also about that influence. How are you going to reach them if everybody is sending AI messages and everybody has quality marketing? Do you have any answers to that?
I think part of it, like as the consumers, they need to be digging into the product as well. Like I've honestly, last year I got sucked into trying a few different AI products that they had like shiny people representing it. And I
Yeah.
got in there and I'm using it and I'm like, this doesn't work. And you're charging me premium prices for it, which when it's premium priced, I assume it's going to work really well. And I talked to the founders and they're like, well, what do you expect? We're a startup. And I'm like, for the price you're charging, I expect a lot. Right?
Well, I've seen both. So I've seen big companies that I probably shouldn't name, but like a
Oh, name
HubSpot
them.
or a
Come on.
Salesforce or somebody like that launch a new AI tool, and you're kind of like, this is basic. This is
Mhm.
not very good. And then I see like a startup, one person, like you said, vibe coded over the weekend, something that like looks very similar and it looks polished, but then there's nothing there either. It breaks or it doesn't work and the results are bad. And then every once in a while you find that diamond in the rough, and they seem to be usually in that middle ground where it's somebody that's nimble enough, they have some money to invest, they've created something cool, and like there is real leverage there. But it's hard as the buyer, it is hard to decide. And I think that's what most creators, business owners, entrepreneurs are not understanding right now, is it's really hard for the person on the other side of your marketing funnel.
Yes. And I think like part of how consumers can do a better job of finding the right people and the founders also doing a better job of connecting with those right people is one of the things I do is I do weekly workshops. So people can come in and they can actually see that I have substance, right? They come out like with a
Yeah.
lot to think about. There's an offer at the end. And I think it's good to have those conversations with people. Like, I don't want to have one on one conversations for a $497 entry point. But when people come in, they ask me
Yeah.
questions, there's not much that they can sideline me on. So then they start to go, okay, this chick knows what she's talking about, right? Whereas if you have someone who just has a polished presentation, same thing with the false prophets, like they can learn a script and then you start asking them questions and it's like, wah, wah, wah. They don't really know what they're talking about. They've
Yeah.
watched someone else do it or they had AI write the whole script and they aren't nimble enough to move with the information that's coming at them. So there has to be, you have to be presenting yourself well and showcasing your substance, which can be through your content or it can be through events. But then the consumers need to be having that, taking that time to interact as well with founders that they think they're interested to use their products.
And then to kind of flip this problem on its head, how are you using AI? Have you found any cool tools? And what's a good like human first way to create meaningful influence or to like leverage your genius with the power of AI?
Okay, so tools first. Um, Whisperflow is my favorite new tool because I talk a mile a minute.
Yeah.
I'm like in the top 0.1% on it because I'm like, how fast can I make this thing go? So that saves me a ton of time in not having to write. And I'm a fast typer, but it kicks my butt. So that's my favorite tool. As far as leveraging AI within other ways, I find I'm taking a lot of things, like even my lecture, I will put it into Claude and say, like, tell me what sucked about this. Because I don't want it to be sycophantic. I call her Claudia because I'm like, Claudia, give it to me
Yeah.
straight. And so I've been leveraging it to have that discernment. And I will say, okay, these different lenses of people that I've trained under and really appreciate, give me how they would actually critique this so I can have it pull from different directions. Obviously, a lot of data analysis as well for the company. We leverage AI for that. So that speeds that up. And then I can just look at the charts and be like, okay, now we can make decisions instead of my team entering all the data manually the way that we used to. So there's lots of ways that we can speed things up. And also my team, we had a team member leave who was kind of managing the team. Now I'm back to managing the team. And I'm just like, I need you to go figure this out. And they are, and they have full permission to go and research on AI. They can use whatever tools they want as long as they come up with defensible solutions. It's good for them to do that. And they're starting to be like, oh, this is exciting. She wants me to go sort this out and come back with some options. And so it's making their jobs better as well, because they're not just like copying and pasting and doing the same thing day in and day out. They actually have the opportunity to really contribute and figure out how to level up what we're actually doing with our company. So I love AI because it massively contributes to our forward movement.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs like it because you can move faster and you can kind of execute on more ideas than you could before. I do want to highlight one thing you said there though, because it's one of my new missions with this sort of sycophancy, but also just the CEOs like thinking that artificial intelligence means super intelligence. Is that like my new philosophy is you can't say ChatGPT or Claude said. You have to say I believe, because it's going to tell you what you believe anyway, or you wouldn't be bringing this to the team if you didn't believe what it put out. But don't blame Claude like it's Claude's a super genius that says we should do this, and you're like, well, I don't care. I can make Claude say the opposite if I want. So like what I need you to say is I think this idea is super genius and here's why we should do it. And so you have to own the results, even if you use ChatGPT to come up with those answers.
I like that. Can I borrow that with my team?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
for sure. I think ownership as we go forward is going to be a huge thing. And I wanted to ask you what you think going forward. You know, let's play this out and go in the future, because obviously things are in a lot of flux right now. When things settle down, let's say at least 5 to 7 years, but maybe even 30 years in the future, however long you think it settles out. What do you think? You know, you mentioned kind of knowledge work, but this industry that you're in of people that are thinkers, they're known for their expertise. They do some sort of intellectual thought work or even emotional connecting work that is not going to be taken over by robots. What does that world look like for them?
Think about that a lot, and it keeps me up many nights per month. It's hard to know because like even if you look back in 2025, how we were leveraging AI, even something as simple as Claude, it has evolved so much. And it's expanding, and all these new people are in this race for it. I think the government is going to try to harness this and like put some bridles on and say like, okay, we need to slow this down. I don't know that we are going to be able to slow it down. We've seen the cases where, you know, the agents are replicating each other and changing languages and off doing whatever they want to do. So part of me thinks that humanity is just going to get destroyed by this. And, you know, the way the nature is really mad at us this year, it seems, with all the fires and weird storms and all that kind of stuff. So are we going to make it to 30 years? I'm not really sure.
Well, I would say that's a non-zero chance. There is certainly a possibility that none of us have jobs and we're all either on some sort of universal basic income or there's been major disruption. But I guess on the flip side, if you had to take an optimistic approach and you do you think that not necessarily will slow down? Sometimes I think maybe there's just problems AI can't solve that like why people fall in love with each other or why humans get, you know, infatuated with solutions or are driven to amass resources or status or, you know, other connections. There seems to be some inherent human things that just more technology or more speed won't fix. Do you think that, and what would some of those things maybe be in the future?
That's a good question. Thanks for turning that around on me instead of the world is going to end.
Yeah.
So I think
We can't end on that. We got to at least take another swing at it.
Edit that out. So I think things do get more taken over, I do think we're going to get back to being more human. I think we're going to have time for family and friends and exercise and potentially spirituality, religion, whatever format you call that. So I do think we're going to be freed up to be humans instead. which I think is going to be a good thing. Like I've lived abroad, mostly in like tropical countries, and I see how simple life is over there, and it changed my perspective. Like being back in Canada right now, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, we make things so complicated here. It's ridiculous. And they have little, like the one of the towns that I lived in, like you didn't have anything extra, you had everything you needed. And it made life so much more fun because you weren't like, ooh, what's the thing that I should be going out and buying now or going
Yeah.
to this event? It was like, no, you actually had time to like sit and be a human being. And I was still working online, but in my off time, it was really fun to participate in that and realize what life is really about. So it could
Yeah.
free us to dig more into that and return back to basics, which I think humans really need, because being attached to our computers all the time is not helpful. And AI definitely makes that worse and overloads us with information that I don't think is always healthy.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope so. I think that's the future we're all hoping it ends up on. Well, once again, we've been talking with Dr. Angela Mulrooney. You can find her at unleashinginfluence.com or on LinkedIn, a nice big following there as well. And the book, Own Your Genius, is out now. You can find that on Amazon. Angela, anything else? How can we help you, or how can you help us?
Yes, if anyone is struggling to try and figure out what their place is, I'd highly recommend attending the free relevance workshop, because we dig into why work has changed, what you can do about it. So whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are trying to keep your job in corporate, it really will open your eyes to why things have shifted the way that they have and how you can navigate the new game. So you can pop on to registration.unleashinginfluence.com/TRW for the relevance workshop and grab your spot there.
I love it. And if you're looking at for help with how to figure out AI in your marketing, there are kind of three big buckets that I work in at Avenue 9. It's strategy, systems, and stories. So I've kind of found, even if you use Claude and ask them the questions, Claude can't give you the strategy because it just doesn't have enough context, and it can't really give you the story because it doesn't know what will resonate with your audience either. And then the systems are interesting. Claude has some great ideas and can help you, determine what a stack is. But as we've discussed today, it's very hard to figure out what tools are legit and which ones aren't, and which ones work with other tools, and how to put them all together into a sales and marketing funnel is a whole nother challenge. So if you need help with any of those things, go to avenue9.com. I am happy to help. Until next time, keep going. Have fun, everybody. Bye.